like, what do you recommend? Somebody who wants to get into, I guess, producing content, right? Paid DMs. One way to get paid is to produce content. Produce stories.
Okay. Well, here's one way you can do it. Petersen Games right now is constantly looking for writers to produce our free scenarios. I mean, we pay the guys that write them. They're free to the people that download them, right?
Yeah.
And for people that are interested in the future in writing for our helping on the sagas, we have each saga usually has multiple guys on it. There's an author, at least one author, usually an editor or a rules lawyer, looking over it. So we need guys for that. So I mean, that's the trivial answer of how to get into writing to contact Petersen Games, because we need guys to do content.
Yeah.
Also, I got a game coming up that I'm working on now. Probably won't be out until 2022 or something, but it's a role-playing game, a new one set in the my hyperspace universe. So it's a science fiction role-playing game. One of the features of it is that the aliens are extremely not alien. Like, none of them are humanoid, even very remotely. They're like all bizarre things. Because I hate humanoid aliens. So
yeah.
It's kind of a thing with me. It probably a character flaw, really, but it is what it is, So hyperspace it also takes place in the universe of hyperspace, which happens after Earth has been destroyed by Cthulhu, because Cthulhu is an alien, right? So why can't he be in space? So it's not all about Cthulhu and Cthulhu monsters. There are Cthulhu elements in it, but they're like they're sure they're there, but most of the aliens aren't that. 90% of the stuff is just regular weird space stuff with parasitic aliens and vampire aliens and telepaths and guys that travel in time or whatever. But the idea is that humanity had to flee from Earth. Most of them were killed, right? And so the humans are now this kind of rare roving species with our spaceships. So the players would be in one of those roving spaceships, and the team would be the crew of the ship, adventuring from planet to planet and experiencing things. And
cool.
And the fact that humans are rare and unusual kind of plays into a lot of the scenarios. Oh, it's a human,
Yeah.
So the evil collector aliens always want to collect you because they don't have a human in their set, and other guys are like, oh, humans, yeah, I've heard about you. So it's kind of Anyway, we're looking at some point. We're looking for guys that are interested in helping do scenarios and content for that. So that's coming up. But if you're interested in actual doing a whole game or playtesting it or doing it for us, then there's that. So maybe that was too pedestrian of an answer to how to get into doing content.
Well, no, I think it's a good idea. I mean, thing is, people in our group are primarily, I think, trying to just DM, but I know there's some people like that are also creating content, right? And so why not?
You need guys to DM our stuff too. So
yeah.
And
exactly.
I mean, the way I got into writing content was that I did things in my own local group. I played RuneQuest, and then a friend of mine got me to call the owner of Chaosium and send him some of my stuff, and then it got published. And then later on, I got more stuff published, and then he decided that I'd never missed a deadline. And I knew I loved Lovecraft, and so he sent me Call of Cthulhu to write. So
nice.
That was pretty sweet.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're homebrewing your own world anyways, you are writing it, so why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not capitalize on that? You already got a lot of people will spend. I don't even know. I mean, I'm not a homebrewer really. I homebrew a little. I make stuff on the fly, but I don't really spend a lot of time like.
Well, I mean, I only play in published worlds, but a lot of them are worlds that I publish. So I guess is that a homebrew?
Basically,
Does that count as a homebrew if it's published, but I wrote it?
Well, I see some of these guys on YouTube, like they go on these. There's like applications nowadays for it. They go on there, they write like a huge thing, and they link it all together. They have maps, they create maps, they do everything, and it's like, you may as well publish that. I mean, that's like you just create your own world.
Well, that's always the thing. Is how much do you want to do when you're making your world? Sometimes you have to do a homebrew because you have something that no published material will allow for you. But my argument, and I think I made this before I was talking about it, is that you have X number of hours a week you can have to prepare your role-playing stuff. Say it's 10 because 10 hours. Well, you can spend that 10 hours doing a whole world from the ground up, or taking an existing world and building a campaign on it, or taking an existing world and campaign and then making that campaign really good. And the question is, where is that hours best spent? And it depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it depends on how good you are at just building that kind of. If you're a writer type, you're probably gonna have more fun creating it, honestly. But if you're not a writer type, you're probably. I mean, it just depends on what you like. If you hate writing,
depends on what you like.
It's gonna be torture.
Well, I was talking to my actually my sales manager George, and he was mentioning that he runs Call of Cthulhu all the time, which is kind of flattering to have my sales manager run my games. But
Yeah.
but he spends his 10 hours or whatever he has a week to do things, actually making the things the players find in the Call of Cthulhu game. So if they find a scrap of something written on a bottle, he has a bottle with it written on. He actually they found a fingernail that had been torn out by the roots, and he actually made a fingernail that it wasn't really a fingernail, but it looked like it was torn out by the roots, and he spent time making that. So he's doing that instead of doing a dungeon map. But you know, it's like everything makes it anything like that makes it fun for the players. So so that's what he wants to spend his time on. You know, I mean, I once wrote a letter which I had invisible ink on, and then I had the players have to heat it up over the stove to see the secret message.
Oh wow!
And, they kind of like that.
Yes.
When you realize there must be a secret message.
Yeah, I'm real big into just doing maps and printing out like any message or anything that I always print it out. And
well, that's usually what I do too, right? Yeah. That's why. I mean, that's
pretty common. But a lot of people they'll hand draw maps. I'm really big on like actually printing out. Like I go get architecture. You can go to Staples and they'll print architectural maps really cheap. So I'll turn like a map. An architectural map means it just doesn't have it doesn't have background colors, just lines like you see in that, like a blueprint of a house, right?
Sure.
And so you can turn a map into that.
Yeah, internet and a laser printer at home, you can get and some simple CAD, maybe not a CAD program, but Photoshop or Visio or something, you can make all manner of maps.
I've been able to actually just find a lot of like basically CAD maps, and then you take them to Staples, and I think it's like a 4 by 3 foot map is only like $12. Wow. So I just print it out huge, come in, throw it down. Everyone's like, oh, wow. And it's like, and I put paper over it, like, you know, so they can't see where the rooms they haven't been in, like little note, like, you know, the cards in school where the flash cards.
Sure.
I forget what they're called, index cards, whatever. I just throw those on there, cover it up, the areas they aren't in, so they can't see what's, you know, unexplored. That's it. But they love that. Yeah. Yeah. But it's like that adds just so much. Like
players are there hoping to be entertained by you, so anything you can do to make it more exciting is always fabulous. And so
exactly
that's why we have the maps in the sagas, and we have the twists and turns. We want to be able to surprise the players. It makes the players seem smart if they figure out how to handle the surprise, and it makes the game master. It's fun for the game master to like spring these things on them, you know.
Yes.
So it's all part of the same thing.
Exactly.
That's part of the fun of the Planet Apocolypse role playing thing coming up, because it's kind of the whole thing is like a big monkey trick you're playing on your players, but then the players enjoy it when the players start figuring out what's going on. This isn't just some local thing. This is the end of the world. Then suddenly, like all the bets are off, and they can set fire to the king's palace to burn it down and kill a monster, because what the heck, you know?
Right.
There's not going to be any king or kingdom pretty soon. So
yeah. That's interesting. How is that even going to end? Like at the very end, they just all die. Like what happens?
Well, I mean, that's up to the game master if you want to have them all die, or all go to a different dimension, or have them find some place where they can survive. You know, there's like a lot of ways you can do it. I mean, how does an apocalypse movie end? I mean, there's the fun part in the middle where the guy's driving in a Maserati down the streets of New York at 100 miles an hour because no one's there to stop him.
Yeah.
Well, there's the end. Everything's going downhill.
Well, usually after it's post-apocalyptic then, so now you got to come out with a post-apocalyptic book, and then some sagas, and after your world's destroyed. You know, like what's that look like? Type thing.
Yeah, and you can do that, or you can say, well, you know, now it's time to break out Greyhawk or play one of the sagas. You know, it's
it becomes Dark Sun.
Everyone's dead. Let's do this now.
Yeah. Well, it turns into Dark Sun.
It could. Or you can say, well, you know, I was going to play Call of Cthulhu after D&D, so now we're going to go to Call of Cthulhu and not worry about what happened to our D&D world.
That's right. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can meet a new D&D worlds or dime a dozen, right?
Yeah. Well, that's true. There's plenty of those. And maybe you have the homebrew one that wasn't quite ready, and now you have a really great way to introduce the players to it and force them to be in it, because they can't go back to Ravenloft because you blew it up.
Right, exactly.
There is no Ravenloft. It was all eaten by Cthulhu monsters.
They jumped through a portal and end up in somewhere else.
In your world.
Exactly.
You know?
Cool. All right. And then I think we've pretty much covered pretty much everything I had to say. Is there anything you wanted to add or?
I think I've shot my bolt pretty much.
Cool.
So it was pleasant to talk to you. Now this is going to be on your YouTube site only?
Yeah, we'll talk when I finish recording. I just want to make sure we get an end point here for the audience.
Okay, yeah. All right.
All right, good. So that's our interview with Sandy Petersen.
Okay, signing off.